it would be war. But when we do it, it's not a war. It's a drug raid. This is not a double standard. Isn't this constitutional hypocrisy? Rand Paul said exactly this. We at least have to acknowledge that this is a one-sided argument. Arguments that cannot be applied in reverse, that you cannot apply to yourself, that are not universally applicable, are bad arguments. And he continued, let's say this is not a war. Let's change the definition and say it's not a war. This is one of the arguments. So if a foreign country files charges against our president for violating their country's laws, should we extradite him? Or should we turn a blind eye to their abduction? Rubio's answer was a classic political dodge. Look, we will always act in accordance with our national interests. Rand Paul immediately interrupted, yes, but this argument is emptying out. The drug raid argument is not a real argument. It's an excuse. Saying it's not a war is also an excuse. It's not a real argument. We do this because we have the power. We do this because it is in our interest. We would never allow any country to come and bomb us, impose a blockade on us, or take our president away. We would never allow any country to come and bomb us, to besiege us, to take our president away. Numbers are not innocent. At all, Rand Paul went even further. He explained how dangerous it is to refer to the casualty count to define the war. In the OLC opinion, the Office of Legal Counsel opinion, one of the main arguments they used was that not enough people had died. So there is a number. They don't specify it exactly, but there is a number. I think the 50,000 to 60,000 soldiers who died in Vietnam meet this number. But here is the problem. The number of deaths is not important. The issue is determining this retroactively, and it hit like a coup. Because think about it. If Congress has to wait for a certain number of people to die before it can make a decision on war, then Congress is approving the war after it has already started. This is not oversight. This is an approval stamp. The Constitution doesn't say that. The Constitution says this: the authority to declare war belongs to Congress, not to approve it later, to initiate the kinetic action. Rand Paul said one more thing, and this is one of the most honest things a senator could say. Calling it kinetic action is an insult to our soldiers. You weren't wounded in combat. You don't have a war medal. You have a medal for kinetic action. These words summarize everything. Language is a matter of power. Saying kinetic action is a trick used to bypass Congress. This is also a disrespect to the soldiers who put their lives on the line in war. You say, the place you went to was not a war. It was just an operation. This is unacceptable. And Rand Paul did not accept this. Rubio's unelected leader Rubio made one last-ditch effort. He said the person ousted from Venezuela was not a real leader. He was unelected, a drug trafficker. But Rand Paul shut that down too. Bolsonaro says Lula is not the real president. Our president said Biden is not the real president. Hillary Clinton said Trump wasn't the legitimate president in 2016. If that's our rationale, that is, to say someone is not the legitimate president and take action without going to Congress, you see where that leads. It leads to chaos. That's why we have rules like the Constitution, so that presidents can't do whatever they want. And then he gave the example of Netanyahu. Netanyahu was indicted by the International Criminal Court. One of the reasons for this is that we do not want to be part of the ICC. We will not allow our president to be arrested on foreign soil. Most of us would probably also reject Netanyahu being accused in this way. So the argument is this: if labels like illegitimate or guilty are sufficient justification to suspend the rules of war, then these labels can be applied to anyone. Today, it's Maduro. Who will it be tomorrow? You need to watch this, because what just happened has shattered one of the Trump administration's most dangerous legal arguments. And I'm not exaggerating. This was not a routine political discussion. This was a Trump official cornered while trying to maintain his power ambitions and then completely collapsing when the logic was turned upside down. Today's topic: the historic confrontation between Senator Rand Paul and Secretary of State Marco Rubio. And before you watch this video, let me just say, yes, Rand Paul is a Republican, but that's not what's important here. What matters is that someone has exposed the unchecked executive power. And Rand Paul didn't play games in that moment. He put the evidence on the table. The Trump administration has been pushing the idea for months. When America bombs something, blockades a country, or forcibly overthrows a leader, this is not war. No, this is a kinetic action, or a law enforcement operation, or a drug raid. Just stick a new label on it, okay? And voila, Congress doesn't need to vote. That's the rule of the game. Marco Rubio also tried to defend this, but Rand Paul asked a single question. Simple, destructive. It was a universal question. If another country did exactly the same thing to us, would it be an act of war? That's all there is to it. One question. And Rubio has nowhere left to run. The real issue is not Venezuela, because the issue is not Maduro. The issue is not Venezuela. The real question is, when Trump wants to use force abroad, does the Constitution have any meaning? The Founding Fathers discussed this issue in great detail. They decided almost unanimously and wrote it into the Constitution. The power to declare or initiate war belongs to Congress. Now keep this fact in mind as you listen to this quote. Rand Paul is speaking at the podium. Our Founding Fathers debated at length which branch of government should have the authority to declare or initiate war. They almost unanimously granted this power to Congress and wrote it into the Constitution. Now, if you flip the script, I want to ask you this. If a foreign country bombed our air defense missiles, captured and took our president, and blockaded our country, would that be considered an act of war? And what did Rubio do? Just past the time, he talked about the duration. He mentioned that it lasted 4.5 hours. He said that no one died. He called it a police operation. He dodged the main question. Rand Paul didn't let it go. What if it had only lasted 4 hours and they had taken our president? It was short. No one died. There were no casualties on the other side, nor on our side. A perfect operation. Would this be an act of war? Rubio's answer, we don't think this operation comes close to the constitutional definition of war. Rand Paul asked again, so if someone did the same to us, would it be an act of war? No one is dying. There are few casualties. They come and take them. Okay, a perfect military operation. Was this considered an act of war? Rubio was cornered, he was cornered, and here the mask fell off. The moment his mask fell, Rubio finally admitted, of course, this would be an act of war. Wait a minute, what did he just say? The main issue, the shift of power. Now, let's look at the big picture. The Trump administration is redefining war, step by step, piece by piece. Before, there are no significant casualties, so it's not a war. Then, the duration is short, so it's not a war. Then, a law enforcement operation, so it's not a war. Most recently, not a legitimate leader, so no need to go to Congress. Bit by bit, the definition is slipping away. And as the definition shifts, Congress's authority diminishes, and that's why this moment is important. Rand Paul's question brought to light a bipartisan issue. If you give presidents, Democrat or Republican, this expanded authority, it will not be taken back. The next escalation will be easier. The next one will be even easier, until Congress becomes merely a spectator, and Rubio is aware of this. But he defends it. Why? Because right now, this power benefits Trump, and this is a sufficient reason. Rubio couldn't win. Pay attention in the trial. Rubio never answered directly. Every time he cited the duration, she cited the number of casualties. He cited drug trafficking. He put forward the national interest. He put forward the argument of an unelected leader, but he never said this. If it were done to us under the same conditions, there would be no war. Because he can't say that. Saying that would be nonsense, and he knows it. Rand Paul cornered him, and the only thing Rubio could do was try to escape that corner. He couldn't escape. Conclusion. Language is a weapon. There is only one lesson to be learned in this trial. Language is a matter of power. Say kinetic action, and Congress is sidelined. Say law enforcement operation, and the Constitution is bypassed. Say drug raid, and the authority to declare war is disregarded. Say unelected leader, and intervention is legitimized. But Rand Paul's question shattered all these linguistic games. Universality test. What would you say if it were done to us? And the answer is war. If it's war when it's done to us, it's war when we do it too. It doesn't work any other way. The Constitution works like this. This is how the law works. Justice works like this. And Rubio couldn't defend it, because it is not defensible. That's why these moments are important. That's why supervision is important. That's why hearings are important. Because when someone really puts pressure on, the contradictions come to light, and at that moment, the masks fell. If you liked this video, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. Do you think Marco Rubio should resign after these statements?